Okay, yeah, it's like, yeah, sure.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's an understatement to say that it is an honor for me to be your MC today. As your MC, I want to spare you the embarrassment and just remind you to turn your phones to silent. I also want to create a safe space here in Walter Hall for you to feel your feelings, to cry your tears, whatever you need to do. You're with people who all love the same person, so please don't be afraid to emote. We are not afraid of emotions here. When I first sheepishly tiptoed my way into the jazz scene in Toronto, I had come from 11 years of a fairly unsuccessful acting career. Musicals, plays, spec commercials, vastly different from singing in dark, noisy clubs and restaurants. It was my friend, a saxophonist, Daryl Orr, that invited me to come to the Rex Jam one Tuesday night and meet some other players, maybe find my feet a bit as a singer. I was thrilled. I was absolutely terrified. They will all see straight through me, I thought. The wannabe jazz singer, unhumbered, not a clue what a flat fifth was or how to count a song in. I tried to sneak in, but of course, I came through the front door and right into the middle of a line of horn-playing undergrads waiting to blow the bejesus out of whatever standard they had called. But Daryl saw me right away and he called me over to a table where he sat with the usual suspects. There was Morgan, Jeff, Rob, Dan, Sly, Justin, Bob, John, Sharantha, Jake, Brendan, Mick, Tom, Chris, Nate, Neil, Ted, and Julia. Sweet, smart, twinkly Julia. I was immediately drawn to her, of course. She was kind, she was funny, she was relaxed, and as I would soon find out, incredibly musical. She made me feel welcome and at ease right away. I saw her most often in the late nights at the Rex, Gate 403, and then later at the Bluebird Bar, where she played and she booked other players and friends. In 2015, she invited me to a clothing swap at her parents' place, where a gaggle of women all met and cackled and threw dresses and shirts and shoes back and forth in our underwear. It was glorious. And it came at a time postpartum, surrounded by the boys I had birthed, when I needed some serious female energy. I was so grateful to be included and invited. I got this rather horrible, fantastic shirt at that swap, so I thought I should wear it. It's now my son's favorite, hence the holes and the slightly 11-year-old boy smell to it. Julia gave me a blue satin kimono, which was unfortunately lost in a move, but I wore this one today in tribute to the lost blue kimono and to the beautiful spirit who gave it to me. Allow me to give you a little bio of our Julia in case you didn't realize, like me, the breadth and depth of her education in music and her love of her community. Julia was first immersed in music at Oakwood Collegiate, studying with Marg Reddy, playing clarinet and timpani. She went on to study at the University of Toronto School of Music, where we are today, graduating with a bachelor's degree in classical percussion, and studied privately for several years with drum guru Jim Blackley. After U of T, to improve her jazz chops, Julia enrolled at Mohawk College, studying drums with Kevin Dempsey and composition with Mike Malone and Dave McMurdo. She graduated with honors from Mohawk's jazz program, winning the Rosso House and Eva Polonic Awards. In 2011, Julia released her album Tumble Stumble under the Julia Cleveland Quintet, a group that included Adrian Ferrugia on piano, Mike Malone on trumpet, Kelly Jefferson on sax, Ross McIntyre on bass, and of course, Julia on drums. Following the release of the album, the Julia Cleveland Quintet was featured on the main stage at the Montreal Jazz Festival in July 2012. As a formidable drummer, she was described by jazz writers like Jeff Chapman of the Whole Note Review as Hogtown's heir to a newish tradition of female driving drummers such as Cindy Blackman and Susie Ibarra. After that, she continued her studies. This is another degree. She had more degrees than I have hairs on my head. After that, she continued her studies, graduating in 2014 with a Master of Fine Arts from York University, producing 3 new compositions for big band. Teaching, of course, was another of Julia's passions, both privately and at colleges. She taught daiko drumming, piano, and drums, inspiring a new generation of players. Another way she gave back to the communities she so adored was using her quick facility with numbers as the finance manager at the Toronto Musicians Association and as the bookkeeper to a variety of organizations, including Rise Up Feminist Digital Archive. Julia has been recognized as a leading daiko Japanese drummer in Toronto. She was recorded and toured with the Kiyoshi Nagata Ensemble and played for many years, even serving for a time as artistic director with a great group of friends in Ishin Daiko. I'd like to invite Ishin Daiko to come and play a special tribute to Julia now. Thank you so much, Ishindaiko. When I met Julia's sister Tara, I could see in them the same close bond I have with my own sister. Seeing each other through good and bad, through door slamming, sleepover bed jumping, full-throated screaming through the bathroom door at each other, and laughing till you pee your pants. Pretty much only in situations where you weren't allowed to laugh. I'd like to invite Tara Cleveland to come up and say a few words about her much-beloved sister.
I'm a lot shorter than Whitney. First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I know Julia would be proud and feel wonderful that there were so many people here who loved her. I am Julia's sister. I used to call her my little sister, but she hated that because, well, she was taller than me. So I'll just say that I was her older sister. If Julia were here, I know that she would be comforting and consoling me because she was just such a kind and caring person. And she took care of me every time I was sad or upset. But it wasn't always that way. When we were kids, I sometimes thought that Julia was a bratty little sister. I was the one that had to take care of Julia. When we went to Huron Public School, we were latchkey kids, and I was the eldest, so I had to be responsible. She kind of floated through life. She was her super cute and slightly space cadet-y self, and I used to have to wrangle her to school and back on the TTC, or to pottery classes, or to swim lessons, or to whatever else we were doing. Sometimes she'd fall on the ground and have a temper tantrum. She would refuse to go home. She used to get mad at me because I wouldn't let her hold my whole hand. I'd only let her hold my pinky finger as I dragged her around the city. She was never mean or vindictive. She was just stubborn, and she did what she wanted to do regardless of anyone else's expectations. She loved playing for hours on the monkey bars at school. She got really good at it and could do all kinds of tricks and flips. And I think because she hardly ever touched the ground, she thought she could get away without wearing shoes during recess. So she'd run out of class with just a pair of white socks on, and she'd jump on the monkey bars and stay the whole recess hanging upside down, or swinging back and forth. And of course, I was the one who would get in trouble when Mom found her dirty socks. We were always together though, traveling a lot with Mom and Dad. We were two sisters against the world. We'd make up games in the back of the car and play all kinds of stuff together. Julia also would always copy me, sometimes directly, like Tara says na-na-na, Tara says da-na-na. And I'd complain, and Dad would say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And I'd say, oh, but Dad. And as I became a teenager, Julia's mischievous side became even more pronounced. When I was 14 and Julia was 11, we had adjoining bedrooms, but without a door between the two. And Julia would stand in the doorway and listen in on my phone calls, or sneak in to watch me hanging out with a boyfriend, and she'd always tease us. Tara and Nat sitting in a tree, Kissing. And then of course when I told her to get out, I screamed at her, she'd sing and dance in the doorway. She'd say, "Nah, I'm in my room, you can't make me get out." When we were teenagers, she always wanted to hang out with me and all my older friends. And I'd complain to my parents, and they'd say, "But Tara, it's because she thinks you are cool." And I'd, like every teenager, roll my eyes at them. But then I grew up and I moved away, first to Europe and then to university. And when I came back, I discovered Julia, a young woman who was now totally her own person. And she was so fucking cool. She went out all the time. She went swing dancing or playing music. She was hanging out with all the cool cats in the jazz scene. She had way better fashion sense than I did. And she was beautiful. I mean, she had always been beautiful, but now she was grown-up beautiful. And she was tall, and she was sophisticated. And now I wanted to copy Julia. And I wanted to hang out with Julia and her friends. And as she grew up a little more, the caring role also switched, at least partly. And she took care of me after gallbladder surgery, after jaw surgery. She was the gentlest nurse you could ever want. She was the only one in my family who could coax me out of a deep sleep in my naps. And unlike the rest of my family, she didn't put me into a terrible mood because she just had such a lovely, tender way of being. Even as adults, we still spent so much time together. We would eat out together, we would go see music, we traveled, we went to Portugal and had a girls' weekend. I taught her how to knit, we joined trivia teams together, she helped me practice driving. We even had colonoscopy appointments together. We decided that if we had to go through a colonoscopy, then at least we might as well help each other because misery loves company. We went out shopping for supplies, Jell-O and apple juice, and she bought tons of popsicles because she loved anything frozen. Each of us went home to our own homes for the prep, and then we got up the next morning and went to the appointment together. And I remember waking up in the recovery room, and I turned to see her, make sure she was okay. We reached out and held hands, the whole hand. Julia, we were together through thick and thin. We planned to support each other for the rest of our lives. I don't remember a time without you, and I can't imagine a future with you gone. In my heart and in my mind, I will be holding your hand, your whole hand, for the rest of my life.
Thank you so much, Tara. That was beautiful. Another way that Julia gave back to her musical community was to book us all to play at the wonderful Bluebird Bar on Dundas West. I truly look back on all my Bluebird gigs as some of the most fun and incredibly inventive gigs that I ever got to play. Little did I know that the owner and the creator of this very special place, because it is very special, the gal behind the bar, had known Julia since they were tiny, tiny, tiny. I'd like to welcome Caitlin McPhail-Burrell of the Bluebird Bar and her sister, Leslie McPhail-Burrell, to come and speak about Julia.
Hi everyone, I'm Leslie. I'm Caitlin's younger sister, or little sister. Our parents, Margaret and Terry, are very good friends with Sue and Gord. Such good friends that when they started raising their families together in Toronto, they decided to do it together. They first lived on Dunn Avenue and then later bought a house on Westminster. And they kind of share in the duties of daycare drop-offs and pickups and dinner, paying the bills, baby turn down. So first Tara came along, and then Julia, and then less than a year later, my sister was born. But by the time I came along, there was just too many people. And they decided to separate into separate houses. But the families always remained really close. We would celebrate holidays, birthdays, we'd go on trips together, have our own traditions. We really grew up together in a lot of ways. But Caitlin and Julia were particularly close. They were less than a year apart. They went to the same schools at various times and camps, and they had a special bond and inside jokes. And that really carried on until adulthood. They were there for each other, they supported each other. They saw each other at least once a week. Oftentimes I would go into the Bluebird bar to see Caitlin, and Julia was there helping her put up wallpaper or prepare sandwiches for a catering event, or they were laughing at a joke about a stupid game that they made up that nobody else understood. So they really had this special bond, and they were truly like sisters from different misters. So I'm gonna let her talk, but I just wanted to say, oh, sorry, did I knock over flowers? Sorry, Julia. Growing up, I always looked up to Julia. Her middle name, Heather, I thought was the most beautiful middle name you could ever have. When we go skiing, I try to follow her lines down the hill, trying to get my edges just as perfect as hers. Her Chinese year was the year of the horse. Gosh, I wish mine was the year of the horse. She played the clarinet in high school, so I bought a clarinet at a garage sale. I used one, so committed that I didn't even change the reed. Julia was always there, part of my life. She showed up with love, the kind of love that was unconditional that you feel from family. She showed up with support. She was always there to help, and she was always showed up with fun. Julia could just find the fun and the joy in the smallest things in life. A few weeks ago, she was at my house, and she brought a glockenspiel, and we talked about the Ewok garden she was making, or had been making. And when my daughter was born, she was so excited to be a part of her childhood too. Julia was there ever since I was born. She should be here now. This wasn't supposed to happen. And I'm mad, and I'm sad for all the memories that she's gonna miss out on. She would wanna be here, and she would have had the best time doing it and made all of her times better with her in it. Tara and Sue and Gord, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know you're such a close family. And John, I know how much you loved her, and it was honestly amazing to see you love her exactly for who she was. And Julia, I love you. And those that we love become a part of us because we love them so deeply. They're ingrained in the fabric of who we are. So I will miss you, but I will carry you with me.
Hi guys. As Leslie said, Julia is my first friend and is my longest friend. I've known her exactly all of my life. It's a fact Julia and I were pretty smug about too. I remember when we were in elementary school, we constantly talked about how no matter what, we'd always be the better friends than everybody else because we had known each other 100% of my life and no one else could say that. We'd say things like, they think they're best friends, but they've only known each other since kindergarten. Because if life was a game, Julie and I were confident that we were gonna win the Who Has Been Friends the Longest competition. And to be honest, life has always been a game for us. Every store we passed was a chance to make up a jingle. Every salt and pepper shaker on a table were characters in an elaborate story we were making up. Everything that happened at school was a potential plot point for our book series, Eggs Incorporated. Just hear us out. It's about a family, last name Egg, of detectives who create a corporation and solve crimes. Straight up head. Everything we did, no matter what, somehow became a game. And looking back, there was definitely a theme. Try and play the game as quietly as we could, as long as we could, before we got caught. In other words, we were nightmares. Right next door at the ROM, Julie and I successfully turned a father-daughter outing into our dads being approached by 3 pretty angry security guards. Apparently Julia's game of creep around the museum and touch as many green things as we can was setting off silent alarms all over the museum. We caused floods, no fires, and soon Gordon may have had to call the police when we played a very successful game of Haunted Mansion and hid ourselves in their walls so effectively they could not find us. My personal favorite is when, we had to escape from these kidnappers. We locked our cottage's 1 bathroom from the inside, crawled out the tiny back window, and escaped into the woods for hours, leaving everyone else unable to use the bathroom and completely with no idea of what had happened. My mom told me they found our hiding spot that time because she heard Julia's tiny little voice say to me, "Caitlin, I think we're really in trouble this time." Julia, I think we're really in trouble this time because it turns out we were wrong. Life isn't a game, and we won't be sitting in the same room when we're 90, winning the Who Has Been Friends the Longest competition. The plan of you being my friend for 100% of my life isn't gonna happen. Instead, I'm standing here trying to sum up a friendship and a person that is so much a part of the fabric of my life. I had honestly never considered a moment like this. A life without games, a life without Julia. I have been searching for a way to encapsulate everything I feel for Julia into just the right words, but it isn't possible. There is no way to capture her beautiful, sensitive, playful spirit. So I'm just gonna say that Julia has been truly one of the absolute greatest gifts of my life. Thank you, Gordon Sue, for giving us all Julia. Thank you, Tara, for sharing your sister with us. We all love her, and we are better for having known her. With Julia, I didn't need to make a plan because it didn't matter what we were doing. It was always just more fun when we were doing it together. I don't know what the plan is now, but I do know there truly will never be another like her, and that I'll miss her forever. I love you, Julia, and I'm sorry this happened. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Caitlin and Leslie, and Eggs Incorporated. In this life, love can be elusive and rare. Though we had been somewhat out of touch for these last couple of years, it was so heartened to learn about Julia's partner, John. How much they loved each other and truly enjoyed being together. I'd like to invite John Southern up to say a few words about his Julia.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. This means a great deal to us all. During the pandemic, when we were able to start going back to places again, one of the things that I would do was go for walks. I lived along the West Toronto rail path. Conveniently, the rail path ended about a 5-minute walk from the bar. I think you can see where this is going. It had been closed for a good portion of the summer of 2021. But I'd go for my walks, and I'd watch for the signs on the door saying, we'll be reopening soon. Each time I go past. I remember one time going across the street to the restaurant there and asking them, do you know when the Bluebird's going to open? It's like, yeah, they'll be opening soon. September 12th, I went out for a walk and passed by the Bluebird, and I see the sandwich board is standing up front, and I'm looking at, wait, it's open, and it's their soft reopening. For a moment, I thought, well, maybe I'll come back tomorrow, and my head caught me. It's like, no, you dummy, go! You have to go in. You've been waiting for this for so long. So I went in, and I went into the back patio. At the table, just outside the door, there were two people. There was a woman dressed all in white, and there was another friend of hers that she was talking to. And there was a few other groups of people all sitting at tables. I went and I found a spot in the back corner, and there was two things that I was hoping for that night. One was the tray that Caitlin prepares with the cheese and nuts and all of those sorts of things. And the second one was to try some wine from the Rosewood Winery, because a friend had mentioned that they're really good. So I did that, and I sat and just kind of kept to myself, listened to the conversations. And as I was trying glasses, I asked Caitlin, could you bring me the bottle that I just tried? I want to take a picture. She said, sure. So I snapped a picture. What I didn't realize until a short while later was that was actually the first photograph that I'd taken of Julia. So I captured that night. Caitlin, being the wonderful, amazing person that she was cross-pollinating conversations. So though we had, tables of people that, for the most part, probably didn't know each other, Caitlin made sure that didn't remain the state for very long. So she would get people talking. At one point she says to me, she said, what's your name again? And apparently I'm a bit of a soft talker at times. So I said my name. I said, John. She said, okay. And so then Caitlin says, she said, oh, this is Gil over here. I didn't crack her. That's fun. I have a Bluebird name now. So eventually, at some point, I got talking to the table that Julia was at, and it was her and one of the regulars at the Bluebird, our friend Aaron. So I went and eventually joined them and spent the rest of the evening talking to them. I became John Gill that night. So the night finishes, we go home, all separately. And a few days later, I decided to go out for another walk. And of course, I find myself walking past the Bluebird. The sandwich board's out, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I feel kind of bad that I had Caitlin open a bottle of Rosewood wine, and it's probably sitting there going bad, so. It's my duty to go and make sure that doesn't exist. So I go in, and of course, who do I see in the same chair? Julia. So I sit at a spot. I think I might have actually joined them that night. So it was Julia and another one of our friends from the Bluebird, was Adam. And so I got to talk to them. And we had a fantastically nerdy conversation about music. As both of them are very, very much lovers of music. And so we spent the night talking about that. And I think at one point I was, last night I went through and I looked at my text messages, and I found some of the very first ones that Julie and I had exchanged. And apparently at one point we had talked about gongs and the notion of when you're about to play a gong, how you have to warm it up at first. You can't just smash it. So we got talking about that. Anyhow, at some point I said, well, I live over that way. I'm guessing guessing you're probably going to be walking over to the Dundas West station. I'm happy to walk with you. She said, well, no, I've got my car here. Do you want to ride? I said, okay. So she invited me into her car. She dropped me off, and I said, well, I'll give you my number, and next time that you're going to be going to the Bluebird, I would love to join you. I said, okay. So we exchanged numbers, and I went home. A couple days later, I get a text message. I'd been thinking about her, and I was wanting to message her, but I was like, I don't want to, pace yourself. By this point, I was already quite intrigued by Julia. I think she has that effect on anybody that she meets. She's very charming. So I get a message from her, and she says, "Hey, would you like to get together sometime again?" It's like, actually, it's funny you should reach out, because I was thinking about going for a walk tonight to go for a slice of cheesecake and a beer. Thought you might like to join me. She said, "Sure, I'd love that." So we went. This was our first date. We went for a walk to have cheesecake and a glass of beer, and I was very quickly taken with her. I get a text message from her the Saturday, a couple days later, and she says, I've got my notes here, I want to read this correctly. So the message says, "Want to go to church with me? ? Smiley face. To check out my polling place." This was during she had been working at during the election, and so she wanted to go check out the place where she was polling that was close to her house. I said, sure. So that ends up leading to the next part of where I get further invited into her life and introduced to many more of her friends. We end up going to the cat first of all. We went to the polling stations. We went to visit the cat afterwards. And we bumped into a whole bunch of her friends on the patio there. At one point, I ended up doing angel stands. I'm on my back. Julie has video of this, of doing angel stands on the patio there. It was a really fun afternoon. We end up, later on the evening, she invites me back over to her home. And I said to her about, there's a song that I've wanted to learn on the ukulele. The song's called "Tonight You Belong to Me." It's featured in the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin. He and Bernadette Peters sing a really lovely duet in it. So she said, well, I have a ukulele, and I've got a piano. We can figure it out. So we did. We spent the rest of the evening figuring this song out and singing together. And I think that notion of a duet is very, very fitting for what the years that followed. I said to a friend the next day, I said, I've been captivated. And I think that's the effect that Julia just has on people. She's so charming, beautiful, smart, magnetic, and I didn't stand a chance in hell of falling outside her field of attraction. And I'm very thankful for that. Because in the time that followed then, I began to meet more and more. She invited me more into her life. And next was, for Thanksgiving, I met her family. Gord and Sue and Tara, and Judy was with them that weekend. So I got to meet all of the next group of people that are very, very dear to her. And they were so welcoming to me. And this was the pattern. Every group that she invited me to, I met more of the people that were important to her, and of which there are many, so many. And so we spent the next years of our lives together, playing, exploring, being curious, traveling, and I'm very thankful that we had that time together. one of the things that she's been working on lately, and this is where I think I was thinking about what would be good for me to share, is I see what she goes through more on the inside, because I'm with her on a day-to-day basis. And I got to experience the times where she was really filled with self-doubt, sad about the fact that she wasn't performing as often. But then I was able to see, as she was able to start playing again, and more performances, and most recently, she was invited to join the Heliconian Club by a friend, and she thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I should work on a new composition. So that's really the next thing that I got to see, is watching as she's blossoming, kind of returning to, from what I understand from others, the person that she always was, but had been a bit more subdued for a bit because of various things. And it was so wonderful to see that as she was spending time composing again, and culminating in on September 23rd, her collaborator, Kai, came over and they performed the piece together for the very first time. I didn't hear too much of it because we were in the studio, but she was so excited about it. She really wasn't sure how it was going to go, whether it was going to be good enough, but she was very happy. And it was wonderful to see her so elated about this. Later that night, we went for a walk, and we went and had dinner in the Junction. And on the way home, she was taken from us. There's a lot about everything about that situation, about what happened, that we had no control over. But what we do have control over are the things that we do to keep her in our lives. I think that notion that was mentioned earlier about how she's kind of, by spending time with her, each of us have a part of ourselves that are infused in one another. And that's part of how we carry her around in us. But I think something very special about her is the fact, by virtue of the fact that she's a composer and a musician, that what she creates is something that has the capability of having a degree of immortality. And because of that, and because of the fact that she has, I want to take a moment to thank all of the musicians that are performing today, and particularly Frank and Mike, who have been astounding in organizing this. But in collecting together the music to get to Frank, I didn't really have an understanding of just how much she had composed and how much there is that she has left behind for us. And so I think I want to finish with the notion that this is part of the way that we can keep her with us, in making sure that that music is preserved, collected together, and that it can be performed, so that all of the wonderful musicians that she has had the good fortune of performing with and have played her music over the years can continue to do that, and that they can help us to keep that aspect alive. So I would ask, I know there's a lot of people that I haven't met yet that have performed with her. Please reach out to me. I would like to, this is part of my commitment to her, to keep that legacy alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. That's so true. This afternoon of honoring Julia would simply not be complete without music. So I'd like to invite Mike Milligan and Frank Rooney and their ensembles to come up and play us some music, please. Okay, so Frank's is going to go first.
Thanks, Whitney. As we were putting this together, as Mike and I were putting this together, I was talking to a lot of musicians and people kept saying, I have no words. We're lucky because we have music to express our love for Julia. And so we're going to do that for you now and through the rest of the afternoon. With me on stage I have David Deloney on piano, Ilios Styrianos on drums, and Alison Young on saxophone. And we're going to play 3 songs for you. We're going to play a song of mine, which Julia loved to play, because Julia and I shared a loving and conflictual relationship with the late Dave McMurdo, and musicians are allowed to snicker at that. And this song is in Dave's memory. And then we're going to play a song of Julia's, and we're going to conclude with Julia's favorite standard to play. So I hope that this brings you as much pleasure and enjoyment as it does, and memories of Julia as it does for us. Thanks.
I don't love a naked stage, so I'm just going to stand here. Thank you, Frank. That was lovely. Oh, wow. Julia's tune is so great. I'd like to welcome up Mike Milligan and his group. Do you want to come up and play some music? Is that what we're doing? We're not, okay, we're just kidding. Oh, have you ever seen anyone in this kimono tap dance? That's what I do. Okay, speeches, I'm sorry. It's good, it's good. We'll have notes after with the stage manager. Thank you very much for the music, by the way. That was great. Yes. I would like to, with great pleasure, I would like to welcome Julia's dad, Gordon Cleveland, to come up and say a few words about his daughter. Gordon.
Julia's loss has left a big hole in our hearts, and music will go a long way to filling it. Thank you, Frank and David, and Ilias and Allison, Mike, all the other musicians who are going to be playing today. And then our friends and colleagues are going to help us get through it all. So thank you so much for being here. Julia was our baby, the little one, a sister for Tara, the completion of our family. We had great times together as a family, camping in parks all around the province, summer holidays, renting cottages on lakes and rivers, getting together with other families with young children. Many of you here will remember that. Visiting grandparents in England, living in England for a couple of years. It was a good life together as a family. I loved her so much. She was cute as a button and gave Sue and me and Tara a huge amount of joy. She joined in our crazy capers together. She loved Doris and Tom, Sue's mom and dad, and Grandma Wynne, Sue's grandma. Doris and Tom and Wynne doted on her and on Tara, and the love was returned manyfold. I think perhaps the key turning point in Julia's life came when she had to choose a high school to attend. Her parents, Sue and me, had seen that Julia was a whiz at math and was fascinated by numbers, and really liked science as well, aided by studying science with Dr. Webb of Huron School. Some of you might remember him. So we sat down for a family discussion and pitched to Julia the idea that she should go into math and sciences at high school and eventually at university. It seemed like a really positive career path for a girl with her talents. Julia's response was immediate and unequivocal. Mom, Dad, I want to study music. I'm going to Oakwood Collegiate because I hear that their music program is really strong. My mind is made up. For those who know Julia, you know that when her mind is made up, she can be very stubborn. And so Oakwood it was, and music became her life and love. Julia had to work hard to become a musician. Every musician does, but perhaps she worked a little harder than some others. She didn't start as young as some others did in music. She did work and study hard and practice, as musicians have to do. I had many points at which I have been very proud of her, but the first of the two of the high points of my pride were when she produced her CD of original compositions called Tumble Stumble, and we're going to hear some of those during the program here today. A truly magnificent album. I still have some of her CDs left, and if you'd like to get one, you can come and see me. Parents do this kind of thing. The second was when her band, the Julia Cleveland Quintet, played on the main stage at the Montreal Jazz Festival. I thought my chest would burst. I felt so happy watching and listening to her. Of course, together with Stacy and Mike, she also played outdoors at my surprise 75th birthday. Thank you, Sue, for the surprise, and many others who collaborated, at the cottage with all my friends and family gathered around, and that was extraordinarily special too. Julia loved her family very much. She gave the best hugs. I will really miss those. Loved working with Sue on the garden, played piano for us when we would get together for a family dinner. Sad to say, her dad, that is to say me, is not so well organized sometimes. We had a tool shed built at the cottage by our friend Paul, and everything you need is in there, but it was higgledy-piggledy, and I could rarely find what I needed when I needed it, so I'd go down to the hardware store and buy another one. Earlier this summer, when Joan and Julia were up at the cottage on their own, she decided to set things right. By the time I got back to the cottage, everything was sorted and organized. Things not frequently needed were up top in storage. Everything was labeled in large type so that her aging father could read it, all grouped together so everything could be found when you need to use it. What a wonderful expression of love. But that love and that pride is today the source of all of our pain, our tears, our sorrow. A life ended much too soon, a brilliant, happy life filled with music, love, and laughter. It is to celebrate that life that we're here, to smile with Julia, to listen to the music she composed and played, and to some of the other music that she loved. In closing, I want to read the tribute that Whitney Barris-Ross wrote about Julia. It seems to me to capture what so many of us will miss about her. Julia Cleveland was a kind, courageous woman and a badass drummer with a heart of fucking gold. She was funny and twinkly and beautiful and an integral part of our music community, and we will all miss and grieve for her. And so I'll say, goodbye, my sweet princess. We will miss you forever.
Thank you so much, Gord. When I was preparing for today, I spoke to my dad, a guy called Ted Barris. And as a historian of military history, he speaks a lot at memorials for veterans who have passed. And he said, just be yourself. Try not to swear too much. I really did try, but someone else read my swears, so fuck. Anyway, I'd like to welcome another drummer and a friend of Julia's, Andy Morris, to come up and say a few words. Andy? Oh, there he is.
Stay. Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to see so many people here, and to hear this music. It really does make something that's so heartbreaking and tragic remind us of the joy that is Julia. You know, I met Julia about 30 years ago. She was 17, and she was at the aforementioned Oakwood Collegiate. And she was an assistant, like a high school kid who went to music camp to assist guys like me who were teaching middle school guys. And it was, I think, maybe my first or second year there, so I was pretty much faking it, trying to figure out what to do. And this tiny little person, she was tiny, she was like music stand size. And she was just, she sparkled even then. She was just amazing. And she was so compassionate with these young kids and helping them, you know, hold the sticks this way and do this. And I learned a great deal from her that summer. And we became friends. And she reached out to me and she said, you know, I want to be a percussionist. And I was like a recently graduated percussionist. And I said, okay. And she said, I want to study with you and we'll work on an audition. So we did that. Now keep in mind, you know, Julie had only been playing seriously as a percussionist for a year or two when she did her audition at U of T. And this place is, you know, renowned for being a tough school to get into. And so she did that audition. And you know, she got in. And I didn't really know that she would. So simply because everyone else who was applying had been at it for years. They'd been at NYO and TSYO and done all these things. And she'd been literally playing percussion for about a year and a half. But I think Russell saw something in her that made him take a chance on her. And what he saw was truth. He saw faith. As long as I've known her, she's had an unwavering core of faith and truth. Her faith was in herself, in the power of compassion, in the belief that if you work hard and you try to achieve your goals, you can. And she had a faith in humanity. That chance that Russ took on her paid off, and Julia, as we know, went on to become a performer, a teacher, a composer, an artist, a renovator, a landlord, an administrator, a club impresario, and many, many other things. And she was a fierce Amazon princess, and she hated when I called her that, because of the princess part. I was fortunate to build a long relationship with Julia, and we worked as freelancers together. I saw her perform, and we developed education programs together, and eventually she came to work for me at Woodshed Percussion, and later at Dream Cymbals, and then later again at the Toronto Musicians Association. People leave imprints on the people around them and the places that they visit. And Julia's, and in her case, those imprints, they were profound, and they were existential. The fact that you're all here today speaks to that. She imprinted on all of us. She imprinted compassion in everything she touched, from patiently working with a struggling student to literally sending instruments to inmates on death row. Her moral compass set an example for everyone around her. In fact, the organizations she worked for, especially at Dream Cymbals, were literally shaped by her. We would sit around in the office and talk through each new decision, each new policy, each artist that was applying, whether we should have a warranty program, whether we should support this program or that program. And she was a part of every one of those decisions. She literally shaped that company. But she was also fiercely competitive and a fierce defender of those who had been unjustly wronged. There was always a rally or a march or a challenge to support, and I swear if you engaged with her on any of them, she would convert you to the cause. And that same passion extended to her love and faith in those around her, and none more so. None more than Tara. To hear Julia speak of Tara was always a thing of beauty and grace and love. Julia also had an absolutely epic sense of humor. Her laugh, as you know, was completely infectious, and she loved nothing better than pushing a few boundaries, pushing a few buttons. Sometimes, I'm sure, just to get people to confront some truths with compassion and a bit of cheek. And to that end, let me share a brief story. Woodshed and Dream had a long-standing tradition of the summer cook-off. You didn't think I'd go there, did you? All right, here we go. So the cook-off was an epic event. All the employees and their partners, dates, cousins, we didn't really judge, would gather to compete in this food challenge. Janice, my wife, would usually set the rules for the year, which consisted of what the dish or dish theme would be, and if the employees or their partners would cook. Whichever group did not cook would judge. Now, the festivities usually started about a month before the event with some of the most epic trash talk you can imagine. We always had a sprinkling of Newfoundlanders in the mix, and they excelled at the literary joust and insult. Dean and Julia and Janice and I would be roaring as these missives would come across our desk. For example, clearly the veterans of our esteemed organization are overcompensating in so many ways for their lack of, pick one, endowment, cool factor, a sane and developed sense of taste, lingual or otherwise, and culinary ability. Sometimes the trash talk was specifically directed at various people, including to Janice. I still can't forgive you for cooking in Andy's place for several years, and even winning at least one of those years, although it should be disqualified since you weren't supposed to be cooking for your culinarily inept husband. I imagine whichever stomach-churning concoction you come up with will be tainted by your too close proximity to the dogs. We have 2 dogs. We all know the smell of that one blanket in the truck that you allow the dogs to lie on and then refuse to wash, and I can only imagine that will somehow manifest itself as a taste in whatever dessert you decide to force upon us. So, I'm setting the table here. So it came to be that the competition evolved from, chili to chicken to dessert to more evocative themes. And one of the final years of the competition was a year that one of our team, I think it was Dean, was having his first child. So naturally, the theme of the cook-off that year was baby. Trash talk ensued, tension built, and the teams were set. Julia, however, remained tight-lipped. She did not participate in the trash talk, and she didn't talk about her contribution that year. Did we mention how competitive Julia could be? I think she was the only woman on the cooking side that year too, so the gloves were off. So it was Julia and a bunch of ne'er-do-well men being judged by all the women. And so there was a whole dynamic to this thing. As one can imagine, there was a flurry of the predictable and banal chocolate dessert in a diaper from several of the less noble and culinarily challenged contestants. There was a misguided but avant-garde dessert made from baby vegetables. And then there was Julia's work of art. They were pies. 6 small pies. I don't really know the word for like a 6-piece art panel, like a triptych or a diptych, so a sextipt or something like that. But that was what it was. But think of them, if you will, kind of like the Stations of the Cross. Except for rather than the story of the crucifixion, they depicted birth. Don't get ahead of me here. They were birth pies. The first was a simple potato pie with a wavy line bisecting it. The second was the same but slightly dilated. The third more so, and there was a small potato protruding. And so on until we got to the final pie, which featured a fully formed baby made from potato on top. This was just simply gloriously Julia. She was funny and she was cheeky and she brought her game and she was in it to win it. She completely shut down the competition and shut up the entire room, and then we roared and roared and roared. By the way, it was delicious. In the following year, there was more trash talk, and I was reminiscing this afternoon, reading through some of that trash talk. And as every single person was, thrown under the bus by name, Julia's name came up, and the trash talk went like this. Julia, credit where credit is due. You once brought in a vagina-shaped dish with a baby's head coming out of it. I've got nothing but respect for you. We eventually stopped the cook-off and we moved to a slightly less dangerous event, axe throwing. And I can't resist, Julia kicked axe there too. It's an incredible breadth of people here today, from our brothers and sisters in the music community, from the people at the Toronto Musicians Association, to all of her family and friends growing up. It's so heartwarming to see so many people come together to sort of share in the memories of someone who literally shone brighter and imprinted on all of us in such a glorious, compassionate way. I will miss her terribly. She was a little cross. A little cross with me the last couple of years. she can forgive me.
Thank you so much, Andy. I keep thinking of dog blanket flavor. I think there's probably a lot of very expensive French cheeses that taste like dog blankets, so don't knock it until you try it. Anyway, thank you so much. Another reason that I particularly was drawn to Julia was that I could sense the feminism in the air around her. It was like a moth to a flame. She was fearless, and as Gord read, I thought she was a badass. And she was completely at ease in worlds that were very male. I knew that it must have come from somewhere. And I have a hunch that it might have, at least in part, come from the very strong women in her family. So I'd like to welcome Julia's mom, Sue Colley, and Mark McPhail, who is a bomb away from mom, to come up and speak about Julia. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to jump in and say a few words before Sue, but sneak a little bit of time here. So a little over 46 years ago, Sue and Gord asked me to be part of their birth team. It was a time when it wasn't usual for even the officially recognized fathers to be allowed in, let alone others. But they insisted and persisted, as they do, and I got to be there for the miracle of me, Julia's birth. Sue and Gord, Tara, Terry, and I were already sharing a home, and over the next 2 years, Julia was very much a part of our daily lives as she grew from colicky infant to happy baby to adventuresome toddler. And over the decades since, and with our own children arriving, as you've heard, all our lives have stayed closely intertwined. As you've heard other people say, we shared baby care, daycare runs, Christmas, Halloween, birthdays, camping, dancing, skating lessons, and more recently, trivia and music nights. My mind and heart, like all of yours, I'm sure, is a wild kaleidoscope of memories and images of Julia at all ages. But the one thing nobody's talked about so far are the blasted Christmas whistles. They came in Christmas crackers years ago, one whistle for each note. And each year they get pulled out and played. Julia is by no means a frivolous person, but to me, the Christmas whistles always remind me of Julia's wide, great smile, her being up for all kinds of fun, and the joy she took from the simple pleasures of being together with family and friends, often fully engaged in adventure and spontaneous and just plain silliness. These experiences together are an important part of loving friendship and the ties and traditions that we've been able to build. And what about the music we created? Well, we'll never be in competition with you guys over there. As you might imagine, the whistles sound god-awful, and most of us never came in on time with our notes anyway. You'd think that a musician like Julia would run far, far away. But no, as our chosen conductor, Julia more than lived up to her training and brought her skills as a percussionist to the role, pulling our very motley crew together, bringing order out of chaos and music from discordance. With her patient and kind, but firm guidance, we actually sounded pretty good all together. Julia, you're forever in our hearts.
Well, I'd also like to thank everybody for coming and to this celebration of Julia's fantastic life and sharing it with so many of us. My word to describe my love of Julia is thrilling. She thrilled me endlessly, from the moment of her birth till the end of her very short life. And she was thrilling because in so many ways she did things so unexpectedly, even from the early days. The young Julia was a free spirit floating through life, not tethered by detailed realities, as you've heard, sometimes called a space cadet. She first exhibited a strong sense of rhythm around age 2, so I took her to movement classes where 2-year-olds crawled around the floor to music, and that morphed into the National Ballet School, which may have been good discipline, but it was much too constraining for her, but the foundation of her rhythmic core. One of the first surprises like this was at age 5. You've probably heard me tell this story before. We had moved to England, and she went to the local village school. The school was much more structured than the childcare she had experienced in Canada. At our first teacher interview, Mrs. Sheffield, who adored her, told us the story of how she had asked Julia whether she would like to come up and read to her. "No," replied Julia. The whole class sat up and stared. Who dared to say no to a teacher? Unperturbed, Mrs. Sheffield just let her carry on. The next day, she asked her again with more emphasis, "Julia, would you like to come up and read to me?" Again, Julia said, no, she wouldn't like to. By then, the class was in complete awe. Who was this new kid saying no to the teacher? By the third day, Mrs. Sheffield had figured it out and said, "Julia, bring your book and come and read to me." And Julia complied. Well, that was the beginning. It seemed that by her early teens, as others have described, she knew exactly what she wanted and how to ask for it. But she was also a really big giver, and this was one of the ways she demonstrated her love. She would find a wavelength to be on with everyone. With me, it was undoubtedly gardens and construction projects, plus cryptic crosswords. She loved word games and crosswords inherited from my grandfather, and was determined to teach me how to do cryptic crosswords. And she plunged herself into her gardens and building projects in gardens at every turn, and would try to get me involved in her garden as well as always being willing to help in mine. Often she would suggest working in her garden one day, then working in mine on another. I'm not sure that she got the best deal, but it worked out well for me. She choked up knowledge about plants and trees and compost, and constantly fantasized about building new things. Before she had a house, she began by setting up a business called Julia's Gardens and practicing on other people's gardens. She worked with others to design and renovate their gardens, and later Tara joined her in the venture, and they had fun working on gardens together for a couple of years. Julia was a feminist and a planner, and for those who only knew her when she was very young, this could come as a surprise. But over time, she became a carpenter, a creator of art projects, a woman who could fix things and construct things. And a couple of years ago, she came by the house and said, "Mum, those dining chairs really need fixing." Within 3 days, we'd stripped them, bought all the materials, and rebuilt the dining chairs in 2 days. But she inherited the family thirst for travel. So between music and projects, she would delight in traveling all over the world. She visited us in Australia twice, visited Japan, went to Tobago, China, England, Ireland, and Europe with various orchestras. And the highlight for both of us, I think, was in 2016, when we decided to go to South America together. She really wanted to go to Machu Picchu, and her father definitely didn't want to go to Machu Picchu. So she pitched the idea to me, and we buzzed off together. Independent style, of course. Alas, right at the start of the trip, when changing airports in Miami, I had my wallet stolen. No worries. For Julia, this was a rite of passage, really. She stepped up and just took over the organising, the finances, the money, all the details, and I was in her hands for the rest of the trip. Come on, Mum, she said, when in Buenos Aires, let's go and take tango lessons. And here's a great walking tour, and we mustn't miss the street art in Santiago. And what about visiting Valparaiso and so on? It was a very thrilling trip with a daughter thrilled at every new adventure. When Julia owned a house of her own on Jane Street, she decided she needed a new garden wall. The house is on a corner, so it has a very long exposure to the street, and the existing garden was falling down. So Julia designed a new garden wall. She spent an enormous amount of time sourcing everything that you have to source around walls, learning how to make them, learning about drainage, and how to make a wall last forever. And then she took me and any of her friends and sister who were willing out to stone yards and quarries around the city to look at different possible stones and different possible looks. The planning must have lasted a couple of years at least. But not long ago, this project came to fruition. Every detail was planned. The timing worked like clockwork. The number of stones was chosen exactly, and the wall went up in just a few days. Now the neighborhood children come to sit on it, admiring the garden, as well as the little family of Ewoks that she made that are playing in the plants. And I think this wall may last as long as the pyramids. If you're in the St. John's, Jane Street neighborhood, I invite you to visit the wall, have a seat, and remember Julia. Julia, the thrill has gone, but you will still be thrilling forever in my heart. That's it. Thank you. Oops, all the wisdom.
Thank you, Sue and Mark. Okay, now is going to be some more music. Yes, Frank? Am I right? What's happening now? Okay, I'd like to invite Mike Milligan and his ensemble to come up and play us some more music. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. At the end of the wake, Sue asked me if I would speak a little bit before we play. I will be very brief. And if those of you have read my Facebook post, it's basically that. Like all of us, I've been reeling over the sudden and tragic passing of our dear friend Julia. I've had the honor, privilege, and joy of being her bass player for 15 years or so in her various bands. My heart goes out to Gord, Sue, Tara, Julia's partner John, Chris, her extended family members, friends, and fellow musicians during this terrible time. Julie was, of course, a dear friend, and as anyone who knew her would say, she was a wonderful friend to have. Kind, loving, generous, empathetic, inspiring, talented, fun, very obviously brilliant. This list could really go on and on. In short, an incredible human being. I have no words to describe the loss. May you rest in peace, dearest Julia. I've had a wealth of tunes to choose from. We're going to be playing for music here tonight, and I've had a wealth of tunes to choose from. So I decided to kind of choose songs with tune titles that were kind of appropriate to this situation. I'm going to name the tunes now as opposed to after each song, so we can have some continuous music. Music that I sincerely hope helps you to heal, helps you to start to heal from this loss. Music that is available, as Gord said, and as John said, and I spoke with Tara about this as well. We really want to make this a continuous or continual thing. So perhaps a tribute band, but also the website where people can, fellow musicians can access your music and hopefully play in honor of her from time to time. These tune titles, first of all, the first one is not a Julia Cleveland composition, but the title is Kind Folk, which of course, as we all know, Julia's family, friends, all of you people here are most certainly kind. So this is in part in celebration of kindness, your kindness, her kindness. The second tune we will play is called Watershed. One of the definitions of watershed is, of course, a critical turning point. And I'll just leave that there. And then lastly, we're going to play Police State, which is sort of a nod to her political activism. For the two tunes, Watershed and Police State, I want to say that one of the great skills that Julia had compositionally was to choose a tune title and then really tell the story within the music of the tune title. So the second tune, Watershed, I hope you can hear the turning point. It's there in the composition. My friends here, when we're improvising, I'm hoping and expecting that there will be some turning points. And then also for Police State, well, this goes back to the G20, I can't remember, but the awful stuff that happened at that conference. I hope you can hear the protest in the music and also hear the police being represented and so on and so forth. Anyways, I'm going to start playing. Ted Warren on the drums. Josh Smiley on the piano. Bessie Malone, Mike Malone's son, on trumpet. Artie Carver's on guitar. And I'd like to welcome up Morgan Child on drums.
Thanks so much, fellas. I'd like to take a quick moment and read a message from Julia's friend and musical colleague, pianist Adrian Ferrugia, who couldn't be here today. He's out in Nova Scotia, but he so wished he could be here. Adrian says, "I will never forget Julia. We met in the late 1990s as music students at University of Toronto. She was a beautiful, smart, funny, deeply intuitive, sensitive, and kind human with a fire that both inspired and even at times burned. I've always known her as a kindred spirit and greatly appreciated the many deep and meaningful discussions we shared over the years. She was also very wise in many ways. She understood people and she understood the pathways to living a good life. I had the pleasure and honor of being the pianist in her jazz quintet. We recorded an album together and played many shows, a highlight being the main stage at the Montreal International Jazz Festival. She loved playing music and she was also a very unique composer. I've been listening to our album again on Bandcamp recently to remember these experiences. I will miss you, Julia. You were beautiful, sensitive, and you were a passionate soul who made this world a better place to be in. Don't worry, we will always remember you. As long as the memories are alive, you too are alive. See you on the other side, and make sure you get that piano tune before I get there." I'd now like to welcome writer, journalist, activist, and yet another fearless feminist in Julia's life, Judy Rebick, to come up and say a few words.
I'm very honored to be asked to speak as one of the Sue and Gord and Tara and Julia's family, chosen family. And I just want to say that, you know, it came out of sort of the hippie days when we had communes. I'm sure that's how you got with Marg and Terry and their girls, how that got started. But Sue and Gord kept it up. And many of us in this room are part of their family. And that's certainly been true for me. I was there the Thanksgiving that John first was introduced to the family. I'm there for Christmases and birthdays. And I love Julia more than I can say, as many people here have said. And I'm also frustrated because all my life I've stood up against injustice. I've fought against injustice. I don't always win. We don't always win, but we always stand up and fight. But this is, we can't do anything about it. It's something that happened that had no rhyme or reason to happen. And it's so hard to accept that such a beautiful spirit has been taken from us and from our world. And there's two ways, and I'm seeing today, to keep her music alive and to keep her spirit alive in everything we do. The spirit to stand up for justice, to love and care for the people around us, and to include everyone and be kind to everyone, because that's what Julia did. And usually when people ask me to speak at the end of a program, they want me to lead chants, and I'm not going to do that here. But you are going to get to sing Bread and Roses at the end. And I want, when we do that, to put this spirit into it, that we will keep Julia in our hearts and in our world to all of our last days. Thank you so much, Sue and Gord and Tara and John, for all you have given us, and for including all of us here, and for giving us Julia for the short time she was with us. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy. That's so true, isn't it? And now I believe we're going to have some vocal music. Is that what's, yeah, that is what's happening. Mim is giving me the thumbs up. Yes, there will be music. The vocal music set.
everybody. It's amazing to hear everyone playing their hearts out today. So thank you, all the music people here. I'm sure you know what that feels like. It's really special. So this is a song, it's called Human Family, that Julia composed music to Maya Angelou's poem. It's just a beautiful, inclusive poem of sharing and love. And it's part of something we did as the Rise Up band. So it's been mentioned a couple times, the Rise Up Digital Feminist Archives. And we're gonna share this song with you, and I hope that you enjoy it. So here we go, Human Family. I know the obvious differences in the human family.
Thank you. Friends, please enjoy Beverly Taft's performance. Will you tell us about your song? Yes. Perfect.
Thank you so much. We're going to do a song that I'm going to distribute to the band in just a moment. Apparently this is a song, a standard that Julia loved, and it's my deep honor to sing it here in her memory. Thank you. And just wait while I distribute. They're far away, so I have to. This is a romantic song. I loved Police State. Wow, her composition's incredible. So, Clark and I are going to start. Go to my head and you linger like a haunting refrain, and I find you spinning round in my brain like the bubbles in a glass of champagne. You go to my head like a sip of sparkling burgundy brew, and I find the very mention of you like the kicker in a julep or two. The thrill of the thought that you might give a thought to my plea casts a spell over me. Still I say to myself, get a hold of yourself. Can't you see it never can be? Go to my head with a smile that makes my temperature rise, like a summer with 1,000 Julys. You intoxicate my soul with your eyes. I'm certain that this heart of mine hasn't a ghost of a chance in this crazy romance. You go to my head. till my head with a smile that makes my temperature rise, like a summer with 1,000 Julys. You intoxicate my soul with your eyes. I'm certain that this heart of mine hasn't a ghost of a chance in this crazy romance. You go to my head, you go to my head. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you, beautiful band. Thank you. And let me please welcome Mr. Ori Dagan. Ori will tell you about his song.
Thank you very much. What a special, special soul. And amazing to see you all here to celebrate this wonderful soul. I've been thinking for days, you know, what would Julia want me to share with you? And she was such a kind and generous spirit. And I got the sense that I need to sing this song for everybody who loved her so much, will miss her so much. And this is the song that I've chosen, and it was apparently written by Charlie Chaplin. Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there's a cloud in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile, maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through. For you light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness, although a tear might be ever so near. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll see that life is still worthwhile if only you smile. heart is aching, smile even though it's breaking. When there's a cloud in the sky, you'll get by if you smile through your fear and sorrow. Maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear might be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll see that life is still worthwhile if only you'll smile. If only you'll smile. If only, if only, if only, if only, if only you would smile. Thank you very much.
Okay, how's everybody doing? We're almost there. Thank you so much for that. It was beautiful. If you, thank you, first of all, thank you to all the musicians who are here today. You'll find all their names. If you have a look on the back of your programs, you'll see some lyrics printed there. Mim Adams, I believe, is going to lead us in a chorus of Bread and Roses. You are welcome to sing, or hum, or howl, or ooh, or just mouth the words and pretend you're singing. Whatever you need to do. Mim?
This is David Delane with playing piano. It's so interesting having been part of this part of Julia's musical life. Like, we did a few different musical things over many years, and like the most recent one, it was kind of like just a bit before, and I guess it was all before the pandemic. But like, so like, I mean, I'm a feminist, but Julia's like active, and that aura, it was so cool to be part of that aura that she put out, and I just feel super grateful for that. So the fact that, I mean, it's awful to be doing this, but the fact that I am honored to do this, to share this with you on behalf of things Julia cared so deeply about, is very special. So it makes me feel like Julia cared about me, you know? And that's really special. So thanks wherever you are, Julia. You're awesome. All right, so with that, we're gonna breathe a few times before we begin to sing together. As we go marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 mill lofts gray, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. marching, marching, we battle too for men, for they are women's brothers, and we march with them again. Our lives shall not be sweated, from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread and give us roses. As we go marching, marching, unnumbered women dead, go crying through our singing, their ancient call for bread. Small art and love and beauty, their drudging spirits move. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we go marching, marching, we bring the greater days. The rising of the women means the rising of us all. No more the drudge and idler, tenants women reposes, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses. Our life shall not be sweated, from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Bread and roses, bread and roses.
Thanks, Mim. That was beautiful. I promise not to keep you too much longer. It's a beautiful spread of food up there, if you haven't noticed. It has been, to say the least, a very difficult few months in our musical community, losing our beloved friends so suddenly. The grief and the pain is deep and it's unpredictable. But, and a few people have mentioned this today, I find a kind of solace in the legacy of music that thankfully remains with us from our missing friends and family members. To me, it's like a way of visiting with them, to sit with them, to breathe with those that have left us for just a little moment. How unique is it that we have this opportunity to time travel back to a day in a studio when they were at their finest and their happiest, making music with their instrument and their friends. So, I encourage you, when you leave here today, when you are feeling your lowest, when you miss her the most, I want you to go to Julia Cleveland's music on bandcamp.com. I can give you the link after the show or after the memorial if you like. And listen to her. Buy her music. Remember her. Visit with her. And please continue to support not only the causes and the communities that Julia so adoringly championed, but I want you to look out for each other. Keep in touch with Julia's family because they need us. Lean on each other. Slow down. And support each other in all of our ways through this very unpredictable grief and pain. In lieu of flowers, Julia's family has suggested that you consider making a donation to CAMH, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, or the Unison Fund, which is providing counseling services and emergency financial support to the musical community in times of hardship. Interval House, programs and services for women survivors of intimate partner violence and their children. Or if none of these work for you, please consider giving to a charity of your choice that supports mental health initiatives, musicians, or women. You can find all those websites and links on the memorial website, everlove.com. Thank you so much on behalf of Julia's family and friends, communities, for coming today, for sitting for almost 3 hours to listen. It is so difficult to take such a beautiful, big life and condense it, obviously, into an afternoon. So I appreciate you all staying and listening so beautifully. Please stick around. There's going to be a little jam, I think, afterwards. A little bit more music. There's a beautiful food up there. Please have some food and drink and celebrate a remarkable woman. Thank you so much.
safe space anyways.
Why don't we try it another time to figure it out? See if they work.
They were pretty big bag of 3 years before I did. It took me a long time to get through it. But they did work. As I discovered in summer of 2020, it's not an issue.
Plant trees and
Yeah. What a community.
I really think sounds good.
Hello, John. I just wanted to, I talked to him it was wonderful. And Julia's music is I had I just imagined her on the come up and I imagined her on the stage. Oh, okay, wonderful. Great. Okay. I might want to keep it.
let you know.
Yes.
Don't get COVID during this time, John. You don't want to miss twice in a row.
Twice, Joseph. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be John. Like, oh my god, it's so exciting to be John.
I think once was COVID, the other time it was
just
wasn't sure, but it was so. But I was so excited to see Gerhard being tuned, and I could only listen from afar.
Wednesday, the 30th of October at 1. And,
I'm fairly certain that she will sing.
Yeah, she suggested afternoons might be better than mornings for your schedule.
Is it Gary?
Oh!
The name inside it was funny.
Oh. Yes, there's a model name. So the Gerhard piano, they put the name of the model inside. It was something with like a G-A-R-R-Y or something. I gotta look that up again. It'll be in my notes. But it's also, if you open the lid, you will probably see it right there underneath the lid.
I took a picture of it too. I was like, check this out, Julia. It's got a name.
It's got a name. Yeah, they had some crazy shipping there and other things. I don't know. So yeah, Wednesday, October 3rd.
Started on the phone.
Okay. Good. And I usually reach out to like a day or two before just to say reconfirming, but I don't have your deets, but you've got my card. Or
I can give you my